Animation began with living frames from France. A plus century past, all expectations are past. Artistic pursuit in time creates an unmatched cartoon entertainment state. The vocal talent audio modulates to which the Dub Talk podcast would call first rate. This episode, the podcast here has progressed to talk about a cartoon that was made in the West. Dub Talk, Dub Talk, Dub Talk, Dub Talk. Just a warning to you all who don't heed the call, there will be language used that's not suited to protocol. Those younger in years to which swearing's a fear, discretionary listening really should be adhered. Spoiler culture's another thing to be forewarned, that's why we say this upfront so you won't get scorned. Plot and secrets, twisted theories, all will get discussed. If you haven't seen the show yet, don't blame us. A final fact to note with all the things that have been wrote about the many opinions spoken by our hosts don't reflect the whole group, that's a basic rule to know. Alright, I think they got the point. Let's talk about Kipo! Aloha, one and all, and welcome to the confiscated episode of Dub Talk. You may notice something's a little different around here, because usually on this podcast we like to talk about Japanese cartoons and their English dubs that have been adapted for us to listen to. The thing is, though, we were getting ready to expand beyond that. I should be more specific. I stole the podcast, and I've decided to do something a little different here. And do you know what Lilac can do about it? Absolutely nothing. We are going rogue here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because for the first time ever, we are talking about an American cartoon. Woo!
Gasp! Anarchy!
It is so much anarchy. Yes, just burn it all to the ground. I'm burning it to the ground. And what better episode, what better show, what better cartoon to absolutely uproot the system with than one that takes place after the apocalypse?
Can't argue with that.
I mean, you got all your fun, fancy show. You can keep your Thundercats Roar and your Infinity Train and your Amphibias, all those fun shows. No, we want a show that takes place 200 years in the future where human civilization is basically on the verge of extinction. That's what I want to talk about here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dub Talk, and welcome to the special edition episode where we're going to talk about the Netflix-exclusive Dreamworks animation production, Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts. My name is Noah Clue. You know me as the cartoon guy, and I'm earning that title here. But in order to talk about this show, which has a lot of different elements to it, I have brought along, first, I need a music man. So, because the show has a lot of music in it, please welcome Amon.
Salutations, everybody.
And because this is a special edition episode, we have a special guest with us today. Some of you may know him from his series Cartoon Clipshow, and he's also in the work in making his very own cartoon as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big Dub Talk round of applause to Rob the Wonderful.
Sup?
Oh, come on now, man. Introduce yourself to the world. This is a brand new audience opened up to your magnificent curly-hairedness.
How you doing? I'm Rob the Wonderful from YouTube fame. I guess you can call it fame. I have a cartoon clip show series where I review cartoons, mostly from the 80s and 90s, but I do just about anything. I've been taking requests lately, and I actually have a more recent one coming up, but yeah, it's something I've been working on for a very long time, and I really enjoy doing it, and they brought me on to talk about a show.
Yeah, because we, the fine folks at Dub Talk are, they watch some cartoons now and then, but I needed a real cartoon expert. I needed a guy who knows his studios, who knows his people, and, let's just say knows his different eras of Thundercats as well.
Oh, I'm well familiar, I assure you.
Can we agree that the 2011 series is the best of the three?
It was really good.
It just never got finished.
I know.
But hopefully that won't happen to this show, because Kipo is a show that just came out about a month ago. We are recording this, less than a month since it dropped on Netflix, all 10 episodes of it, and you probably, if you're new here, in that you don't watch cartoons like a good human being, you probably want to know what this show is about. So, in the 200 years in the future, society has basically gone berserk. animals have evolved to gigantic sizes. Some of them have developed human speech and their own societies. And humans have kind of been driven underground. They are no longer the tip of the food chain. So this story focuses on one individual human named Kipo, who is a 13-year-old girl who has spent her whole life living underground where it's safe from all of the dangerous beasts that inhabit the surface world. In our first episode, though, she is washed out of her safe home into the real world, and she has to go on an adventure to basically re-find her people, especially her dad. And in the process, she encounters not just the many beasts who inhabit the surface world, but also several humans who have learned to live here as well. And we're going to talk about all of them today. So far be it from us to talk about a show on Dub Talk without actually talking about the dub. Except it's not really a dub this time now, is it? Because there was no Japanese audio to start with.
No, it just kind of is.
It is, so I may have to rename the show a little bit. This is Toon Talk. I'll think of a better name later. But anyways, thank you guys for joining in on this. We're going to start talking about the cast here, but before we do that, I want to know, Rob, what was your impressions of the show overall?
Well, I remember seeing the teaser a while ago, which was it was a scene from episode 1 where she was just kind of sitting in a room playing a guitar, and it was all like solemn and kind of interesting. And then a giant bird came through the window and attacked her.
Yeah,
and that's where the teaser ended, and I was very intrigued by that. That's definitely how you do a promo for a show. So then I got around to watching it, and it was very interesting. I really liked the world they built. It had a lot of fun characters. The music was very interesting. The music choice was very interesting. I think we'll talk about that later, though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Very good. Amon, speaking of music, your takeaways from this?
Noah, you
Sir.
ever felt pandered to, like by accident?
Very rarely, and when that really happens, it feels very good.
That's what I felt like with this show. This show has a lot of just stuff that I like. It's got post-apocalypse, monsters, music, semi-obscure actors who I have a deep fondness for who don't get enough work. I am heavily enjoying this show. I hope it does its numbers and can continue onward. I will happily watch it until whenever. This is great.
Yeah, because there have been a couple of Netflix animated series that only got one season, even though it was perfectly could have gone on for multiple seasons. So I do hope this one also continues on. Yeah, this is a show that I didn't really even know about until a couple days before it dropped, and I have to thank one person specifically. One person I follow on Twitter is an animator and storyboard artist named Tanako Pantoja. You may have seen his work before. He's got that cute dancing yellow cartoon dog in his avatar, and he does a lot of tutorials as well. One thing that he did is he helped work on this show. And so he posted some of his concept animation, his pencil test animation, basically. And I'm like, what is this show? I need to check this out. And that's why I checked it out. Turned out to be a really good choice because this was a great way to start the year with a show that had a lot of great concepts, a lot of good individual episodes, which I love in this show. I love a show that each episode can stand on its own, and it makes the whole show even better. So let's jump into talking about the staff a little bit here. So this show, usually we do ADR director and scriptwriter. We're going to break it up a little bit for this particular show. We're going to talk about the creator, we're going to talk about the producer, and we're going to talk about the two ADR directors who put this whole thing together. This show was created by Radford Seacrest. That's a name you may not recognize, but you've definitely seen some of his work because he's been working at Dreamworks feature animation since 2006. Some of his more high-profile things is he worked on How to Train Your Dragon series, and this is actually a show based on a webcomic that he started a couple years ago, and then higher-ups saw it, really liked it, and said, you know what, we kind of want to make a TV show out of this. But to make that into a TV show, they called on, basically, he gets credited as developed by Bill Wolkoff. He's more of a writer, actually. He's done episodic writing on shows like Tron Uprising, Star Wars Rebels, and the this is kind of an outlier, but he wrote for the show Once Upon a Time.
I
don't know.
The Disney live action show on ABC?
Yeah. Yes, that one. He wrote many episodes for that show.
Wild.
It is. So I'm not sure what the crossover was there, but this is his first time producing a show. So I guess we'll talk about how that experience tied into the development from webcomic to finished product. But we also have to talk about the ADR directors here, the individuals who actually directed our cast to make sure that the voice acting was consistent throughout. For the main voice director, we have Christie Reed. Now, that's a name you may recognize if you're more of an anime person, because she's done directing work on Last Exile and Excel World, but more prominently, she's basically been a voice director on, and I can't emphasize this enough, every single Cartoon Network show in the past 5 years. Infinity Train, We Bare Bears, Steven Universe, just about everything on there she's had a hand in. So this wasn't really a big jump to go from Cartoon Network animation to Netflix animation. And she was helped out for a couple of episodes by Serena Irwin. And that's a person who's also done kind of a one-shot voice direction on a couple episodes in pretty much every Dreamworks series recently. Like, she helped out in Puss in Boots, she helped out in Voltron, and she helped out in She-Ra as well. So that's who we're working with here. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Amon to start with here. How was it listening to a cartoon dub, or voice acting, I guess, for this?
I mean, it was good. I haven't watched all of the animated shows that have been done for Netflix, whether by DreamWorks or other people. But the ones I've seen, I always find notable. When people talk about movies made for Netflix, I often comment on, depending on which one they are, some of them feel more like made-for-TV-ish. And I found that most of the cartoons tend to avoid this. A lot of them feel like, oh, this is clearly on the same level as something that would get broadcast on Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon during a good year, something like that. And this is no exception to that. I think, like, this... It sounds authentically like a cartoon, if that makes any sense. Like, this feels very much like something on par with, like, Adventure Time or We Bare Bears or something like that. Like, it's... And, which I always think of as being, like the voice acting in those shows is so... I mean, it's integral is saying it's going to be redundant, but like it's so like well produced. It's one of those things where like you'd often don't think about the voice acting that hard. It's just like, oh, these are the characters, and they're talking.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, because I know the archetype years ago was that cartoonish voice acting was more of your Looney Tunes style, and that it wasn't your acting, it's that you were putting on an affectation. But we've really shattered that in the past 15 years, especially with everything that people have put out.
Yeah, and I thought like I think this just feels like a good example of it. Like some of these are like some of the roles in here are actors I'm familiar with, some are not. Or they're people who I'm mostly familiar with as, like, live action actors, not necessarily people who do voice acting all that much.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna.
It's gonna be interesting. We got some interesting voices. I'm doing big air quotes here. Voices to talk about.
But it all feels really like strong, and cohesive. Like I do want to give credit, even though there are like some somewhat high profile actors in here. Very little of this feels like actual stunt casting. And kind of like, oh, we're going to put this famous name in here, and whether or not they're, particularly adept at voice acting or not, and that'll kind of be a selling point. I feel like there was a conscious effort to try and match actors to what the character is going to be and what that character needs.
Definitely.
And I like it when I do see that in cartoons like this, because I feel like, especially with how much of Western animation is localized in Hollywood, I feel like the temptation to just stunt cast is relatively strong depending on your budget and who you can hire.
I haven't really seen that much of that recently.
No.
Like, there's a lot of times where, kind of a recent example was, help me out here, Rob. Who voiced the Pony Discord in My Little Pony? I know he's a Star Trek actor, but I can't remember what the name is.
Oh, John Delancey.
Thank you. Yeah, that was
Q on Star Trek.
It was Q. That's right, and that felt like. Felt like the character may have kind of been created for him instead of getting an actor for a character. But but something like this, like I didn't really feel like anything in the show was like we made the character with this specific actor in mind. Passing it off to Rob, thoughts on the overall voice acting?
The voice acting was very good. I don't know how many. Some of them sounded very young, but I don't think they were. I know Kipo's voice actor. She's not a child.
That's correct.
But I'm not sure about the other two. But if they were, they did a really good job.
I can tell you that Wolf's voice actress is, now this is just current age. She's currently 17, and she was probably a lot younger because they probably recorded this more than a year ago.
Yeah, but she was still like in her teenagers.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're really good. It had a lot of surprise voices in here that I didn't really expect until I read the voice cast. Some voice actors that I really like too. There are, like I said, there's a lot of surprising voices in here, and at first some of them I didn't even recognize when I was watching the show. Mm-hmm. But when I went to go look up the voice cast, I was like, wow, they got that person, really?
They went high profile on this. Like, not only is the production really good, but yeah, they pulled people from award-winning performers for this.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really like, because you got some like actual, celebrities behind this, but you also have some very high-profile actual voice actors mixed in as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of variety.
Yeah, and this was a California production, so yeah, when we go through this, we're going to hear a couple of the better-known cartoon voices that you've probably heard before.
Yeah.
So yeah, the entire concept of the show was, like Amon said, kind of pandering a little bit, and it reminded me a lot of Attack on Titan in just the idea of you got humanity kind of on the verge of extinction at the mercy of much larger creatures, and they're also in hiding. But it's like a happier version of that, because no one dies tragically in this show, tragically enough.
I think I remember a couple.
You're right. There were no...
Granted, they weren't like any, important characters, but still.
Okay, yeah, we can do without... Also, there was no on-screen deaths, I don't think. Correct me if I'm forgetting, but I don't think anyone died on-screen.
Not explicitly, at least, I don't think.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so that was refreshing. It's the kind of show that straddles that in-between line of the dark, grittier things. Like, specifically, the creators wanted to make a show based on, like, Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead, and that kind of, this is after everything has gone to hell kind of living, but making it accessible to all ages. So that's why I kind of question whether or not this should be considered a kids show, because I feel that it's gathered an audience of all ages.
It's very misleading, I think, because it has a lot of like bright colors and a very upbeat attitude, and the soundtrack again also helps with that. And I feel like it all kind of distracts on how horrible this world really is.
Yeah,
what are you talking about? We got a theme park with rats, and we got a guitar playing snakes. Like, what are you talking about? This world isn't good.
Well, the rats were cool because they let everybody have fun in their place.
That they are.
You can't say the same for some of the other characters.
I was gonna say, I feel like calling this a kid show seems odd, but I feel like it fits in that same line that I think Avatar kind of helped cultivate, where like it's appropriate for kids, but I think there's a consciousness that like, oh, people older than that will watch this as well, and we can
definitely
we can be more mature than like a stereotypical kid show.
Yeah,
it's a family show. You watch it with your parents.
That's a good way to describe it. Like, this feels... I get the same vibe off of this that I did watching, when Justice League was originally coming out back in the early 2000s. Me and my dad would watch that all the time. And I was in, early middle school, I think, at that time. But, yeah, it felt like a family bonding experience with good guys punching bad guys.
I mean, what better to bond over than a little
exactly.
Casual violence?
Absolutely. There's some of that in this show, too.
Indeed.
So, yeah, sounds like on production side of things, good job to Radford and Bill for developing this. And, yeah, Christie and Serena did a really good job on directing. We'll get into depth on who they actually directed, I guess, coming up here. Mm-hmm. So, there's a large cast in this whole show. The gimmick of the show, kind of, is that every episode introduces a different Wonderbeast, or as they're referred to in the show, mutes, because there's this dynamic of humans are humans. And then anyone who's not a human is called a mute in this universe, even if they can actually speak. It's kind of a apartheid system, but except the humans are the ones being oppressed this time. So we won't talk about all of the side characters. We might in passing. I know Amon's got a couple that he really wants to talk about, so we'll get to that. But before we go any further, we need to talk about the two major villains of the show, the ones who are the biggest antagonists, because, bad guys are just so much fun. So the biggest bad guy of the whole show is a mandrill, a British-voiced mandrill who sweats mind control potion, plays the piano, and controls giant flying flamingos, and basically wants to enslave all of the remaining humanity on Earth. He's a blast at parties. His name is Scarlemagne, and yes, that is... I'm assuming that name was taken from Charlemagne. Look that up for you history nerds out there. He was a joy. Just Charlemagne was the best. And
I do love me a good over-the-top villain.
Can't get much more over top than this.
The more camp, the better.
Are you telling me that a guy who dresses like that, plays the piano extravagantly, and has an evil laugh is reaching over the top levels?
Perhaps.
A little bit.
So, in addition, though, we have a recurring villain who's not really so much a big bad, he's just a big pain in the ass. We have a frog mod, and yes, I said frog mod. Like, okay, so in this world, the frogs are like businessmen, like they wear suits and ties, and one of them is continuously trying to capture Kipo and her friends and basically bring them in because, humans fetch a high price in this world. His name is Jhamak, and he's not threatening exactly, but he does make things difficult for the whole crew, so we'll talk about him in a bit. So Scarlemagne is voiced by Dan Stevens. Now, again, he's done quite a bit of really high-profile stuff before. He was Thomas Richardson in the Apostle movie. He, all you Downton Abbey fans out there, he was Matthew Crowley. But you don't care about that. What you care about is the fact that he was the Beast in the 2017 Beauty and the Beast movie. This is a really far cry from that.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And Jhamak is voiced by Jake Green. He's more of a voice actor, like an actual voice actor, because most of the roles I found for him are in Netflix-released anime. He was Pavis in Forest of Piano. He is Kurowa. I can't pronounce this right. Kurowiwa. He's this name on the screen in Revisions. And he's also quite a few characters in the Kabaneri Battle of the Iron Fortress, Battle of Unato. I believe that's a movie, if I read that correctly. I don't remember if it was a movie or a follow-up. Amon, do you know?
I think that one's a movie, if memory. I remember there being a movie announced, and I think that's what it is.
I thought, yeah, because I don't remember there being an announcement for an additional season of the show. So, Rob, since you were talking about over-the-top villains, does Dan Stevens reach the camp level? Does he get the coveted Hades Award for this show?
Oh, I think, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, any villain that captures humans and forces them to dance in, powdered wigs and fancy outfits. Yeah, I think you're going full camp.
Yeah, he fancies himself better than the humans that he captures. He even he considers them lesser beings, despite the fact that he's fully embraced their fashion and their music from 500 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not really familiar with... I gotta admit, I haven't seen much Downton Abbey. Is this on par with his performance in that show?
I know of Dan Stevens from some things, but none of them are Downton Abbey. Some of them are a little... The other things I know him for are The Apostle, which is a good movie, but he's much quieter in that, because horrible things are happening to everybody, and he's the hero. And the other one is a horror movie called The Guest, where he plays... How do I put this? Imagine if the Terminator was a really suave, handsome man, but he was still going to murder you.
Amon, are you telling me that the Terminator is not a suave, handsome man?
If you've seen a photo of Dan Stevens, you know he's more Britishly handsome than Schwarzenegger, let's say.
That's a good way to put it. He's very British.
He is very British.
I mean, yeah, to give Rob's point, you needed an over-top villain like this because I feel like if it was if he wasn't fun to watch, then yeah, we wouldn't care at all. He reminds me a lot of the Blue Meanies from the Yellow Submarine movie, except maybe slightly less effeminate. Only slightly.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, in the webcomic this was originally based on, if I read correctly, I think Radford originally intended for this character to be human as well, except he was more of a cannibal. So, when you say that the show is dark, it can be dark, but they actually toned it down more than they originally planned to.
That's interesting. I actually looked around for the webcomic after I found out it was based on one. And as far as I can tell, I don't think he actually posted that much of it online. It looks like I could find like maybe about 30 pages. And then I think around the time Dreamworks was like, "Hey, because he actually made a news post. It's like, "Hey, I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna stop the comic because I'm gonna try and pitch it as a cartoon. So here's some like storyboards I made."
Yeah, he quit his job. Well, he didn't entirely quit, but he left his full-time job at DreamWorks to devote more time to working on this webcomic.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they found it, I think unaware of who was even making it, or the fact that it was one of their employees making it, they liked the concept of it, and it's just like, oh, by the way, we want to make this into a TV show. So yes, Scarlet Mane could have been even darker than he already is.
Mm.
That's interesting.
He definitely has a deliciously maniacal laugh. That first episode where we see him leading the group dancing, and he's just absolutely having a ball with himself. I'm like, aw, I like this guy already. So on the topic of Jake Green then, Rob, any standout thoughts on Frogman?
Well, I should mention that when I first heard what they're called, I thought they were originally called mob frogs, not mod frogs. So I thought they were like a mafia.
I mean,
at first.
they kind of are.
Yeah.
I know, but they're like you said they're like businessmen or whatever. But I was kind of expecting to see like a Don Corleone frog at some point.
So it'd be like the god pigeon, except in frog form.
Oh no.
The frog pigeon.
The god frog.
Yes.
Anyway, as far as the character, he was probably one of the more interesting characters in the whole show because he had a little bit of a story arc throughout the series, or throughout the season rather. You know, at first he was going after, he went after them because they were in his building, and then he went after them because Scarlet Mane wanted Kipo.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, once he caught her, they did that whole trope where like the person going after a person and the person they're going after are spending time together, and then they talk, and then he eventually lets her go because he said, I love the line he said. He said, up here it's what was it? It was like
it's kind of suicide to
mute eat. It's a mute eat mute world or something like that.
Yeah.
And he said, so you don't belong up here. Go back to your people.
Yeah, in a very not a I'm going to let you go. It was a very much you better get out of here before it catches up with you.
Yeah. Let's go before he changes his mind. Oh God, he's changing his mind. Run. I love that. I love that moment.
I do love the comedy in this show. I do love that everyone's got quips that don't feel out of place at just the right moment.
Yeah. I think I already talked to you about this. My favorite was the scene when they were leaving the rats' place.
Mm-hmm.
They were.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the rats up there, they have like an amusement park where they allow anybody in, and you know, not everybody plays by the rules. So there was an attack, and they were trying to escape. And the rat people, they said, "Hey, we're sorry for this, but we're gonna have to close early for today. If you don't mind, could you fill out a survey for us?" And then the whole chasing just stops, like a hard stop, so they can like fill out a survey. And I was like, See, that's one of my favorite types of comedy, where there's just this really intense moment, and then it just deadlines for a bit. It's just that awkward, just hard stop is just so funny to me.
And if you could possibly just forget about the giant attacking bird, we would really appreciate it.
Hey, it wasn't their fault.
It kind of was. No, it wasn't the rat's fault. It was Kipo's fault.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. It wasn't their fault.
No, it wasn't. No, you're right. The rats were, of all the mutes we meet, they are probably the most good-natured ones that we meet.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Not like the water microbe guy. What was his name? Tad Mulholland. Like, that was the opposite of nice.
Oh yes. Well, he thought he was helping them, but he was kind of doing it for his own selfish needs.
He was trying to eat their essence for nutrients.
But he was giving them cool dreams where they were like anime characters beating up monsters and stuff.
And mad house parties with lots of fans. No, the best
Kipo
one.
got to meet her quote-unquote mom.
Oh, God. We will get into... Actually, that's the next section, but we will get into that. I do love the Mundo's entire... it's a Cheeto world fantasy world. Like, what's the best thing in the world? A world made of Cheetos! But yeah, I remember, Amon, I asked you, keep an eye out for a David Lynch reference. That was it. I'm assuming it's a Mulholland Drive reference. I could be wrong. It's a little subtle.
It feels Lynchian at the very least. And Mulholland Drive is about dreams, so that would fit.
Yeah. So that is, those are our bad guys, and we'll probably talk about some of the other quote-unquote bad guys, because there's a couple other ill-natured, actually, not while we're in this section here, Amon, I'm going to let you off your leash and let you talk about good billions and bad billions for a second.
So incidentally, I found out about this show. I had not seen any previews for it. I found out about it because another voice actor who we might bring up later was retweeting stuff about it because he's in it. I thought, oh, this looks interesting. But then the actor who played Good Billions, who's a guy named John Hodgman, retweeted basically the scene where he and Bad Billions do a little rap about space. And I can't...
It was...
Look, I told you about being pandered to. It's a pair of werewolves who think they're Carl Sagan, rapping about space, and they're played by John Hodgman, maybe my favorite writer in the world, and the Jizza from the Wu-Tang Clan, who's like top 5 MCs of all time, maybe? Depends on who you ask.
Wait, is that who that was?
That's the Jizza from the Wu-Tang Clan, yes.
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay. I thought his name was the RZA.
No, the RZA's the producer. The Jizza is his older cousin.
Okay. Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm actually a little curious to know if they originally wanted to get the RZA and the Jizza. Maybe the RZA just couldn't make it work. Because that would pan with another joke where Kipo's sneaking away to go to the observatory. As you pass by, they have some photos on the wall, and they have billions, and old dirty billions, presumably because there is no father to his science.
That was so great.
I missed that. Oh my god.
I don't know anything about hip-hop, but I caught the old dirty bastard reference in there.
I have to go back and see that again. I missed that.
There's so much great stuff on the walls and in the backgrounds of everything. It's worth a rewatch.
Also, completely indulgent nerdy side reference, I will note. There is a Wu-Tang song where Method Man compares the Wu-Tang Clan to Voltron, and notes that Jizza forms the head. So
that's like a layer 6 levels deep.
Look, the Wu-Tang Clan are a bunch of nerds, and that's part of the reason I like them so much. They're wonderful. Anyways,
hey, they love kung fu movies.
Oh yes. Anyways, I though it's not just the rap. I actually really like both of them playing these two sciencey werewolves. Partially just for the delight of what's going on, and also just I don't know.
I mean, it's so bizarre watching what we're led to believe are like less sophisticated creatures, but no, they really play up their they've completely absorbed themselves in the world of science and astronomy, and it's even more than some of our characters know. Some of our lead characters think the world is flat.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that episode. I thought that one was a lot of fun.
That was good.
And Hodgman and Jizza are certainly a part of that, just because, like, where else are you going to get this in the world?
No, we can just shut down the world now, because we've reached peak voice acting perfection.
It's true.
So, all right, we talked about villains a long time. Are we okay to talk about some good guys for once?
Certainly.
Sure.
So Rob mentioned that in the Mulholland Drive, not quite episode, but kind of, Kipo is sucked into a dream where she actually meets her mom, because in the show, Kippo's an only child what's the proper term for someone who's lost a parent? Disney princess? Yeah, I guess I'll go with that.
Sure.
Kipo the princess. So Kipo lives underground with her dad, because her mom passed away when she was very young. But in this flashback episode, we do get to see both her dad and her mom together. And so we're going to talk about those because her dad is actually very integral to the overall plot, including a plot twist that, as of recording, we don't quite know what's going on. It's kind of up in the air for season 2, which was a good hook because that will hopefully convince people to renew it for a second season.
They better.
I don't know how their metrics work. Netflix changed their rules recently where they don't measure length of time being watched. They watch... No, did they change it to number of watches or length of watches?
I think it's they redefined what a watch constitutes, and they shortened it a lot.
Okay. Because I remember that of good news recently, they changed the layout so that episodes don't autoplay anymore, so that's good. So, as far as parents for Kipo goes, we're going to talk about Leo Oak and his wife, Song Oak. Leo is voiced by Sterling K. Brown. Now, that's a guy who, if you're more of a TV watcher, you've probably seen before. You know, he's Randall Pearson in This Is Us, or he played Christopher in The People vs. O.J. Simpson, which was a very insightful TV movie because I was not paying attention when the whole O.J. car chase thing happened, so this is a good catch-up for a younger person like myself. But you don't know him for that. You actually know him because he was just in Frozen 2. He played the General Matthias in that movie. Clearly his defining role. And then his Song is voiced by Ji Young Han, who is a little less prolific. She's done a lot of TV work, mostly as like one-episode characters in shows like 30 Rock, The Good Wife, and Grey's Anatomy. She's also Bing Lai in a show I've never heard of before called Bless the Hearts, but it's a very interesting character animation. And she's also the writer, director, and lead character in a web series called City of Dreams, which is 3 people who made the show, and it's all about struggling artists. So I'm going to assume it's slightly autobiographical. I'm actually gonna...
a little bit.
I mean, it's possible. I'm reaching here. I'm going to take the lead on this one because I'm actually not very familiar with Sterling's repertoire yet. He's just been in a lot of things that I haven't seen before. Like, I haven't watched This Is Us, although I've heard it's very good. It's on its like 4th season right now, and it's got a lot of praise. And actually, the creator said they were really excited to work with him because he's actually an Emmy Award-winning actor. For this particular show, though, he's got a tough but lovable voice because he's not just a dad to Kipo, he's basically the teacher to everyone in this Burrow universe. He's got knowledge of stars, of science, and he's always pushing everyone to learn more. So he's really acts as a good teacher with his kind of tougher but more lovable voice that he gives to the character. And then Song, for the one episode she gets, is on the very softer, comforting, full voice side. It's kind of interesting that a lot of the characters and a lot of the voices we're going to talk about are African American, but Song is very definitively Asian American, so it's kind of nice to change up the different character voices that we got from all of this.
I like them a bunch. Doing research, I started looking up some of the actors, and I've definitely seen Sterling K. Brown in something. I don't remember for the life of me what it was, but I definitely recognize him. Which it was
the Angry Birds 2 movie, wasn't it? I'm absolutely certain it was.
Why would I recognize him from that? He's just a digital bird there.
because that's the greatest movie. I'm sorry, the second greatest movie of all time, right behind Food Fight.
See, you laugh, but I also know the guy who made, I think, The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack apparently worked on Angry Birds 2 a bunch, so who knows? Maybe it is.
He's done quite a bit. Yeah.
All I remember is that he voices Gideon on Gravity Falls. And apparently he just sounds like that all the time.
Look, I'm not going to hold... I don't like Flapjack. I never liked that as a show,
okay.
But I won't hold that against the creator.
That's fair.
I'm fully willing to admit it just wasn't my style.
That's perfectly fair. Back to the topic at hand. I know I've seen Sterling somewhere, and I really liked his performance. He was very... It was just a good dad voice. Like, he felt... You could tell, like, I thought he did a very good job in acting with Kipo's voice actress of establishing what that relationship was like. Mm-hmm. And given that we mostly see him in flashback, like, kind of in bits and pieces here and there, I think they just did a really good job of, like, communicating that really effectively without having to take up a lot of screen time. And he has a good vocal quality for that, I think, too. You know, it's very, like, deep and very comforting. He has the kind of voice you want your dad to have, because, like, if that guy's your dad, like, nothing bad's gonna happen.
And on the topic of typecasting, this also, like, he's obviously the most high-profile voice actor. No, actually the most high-profile person in the cast, but it doesn't feel like this particular character was created just to suit his voice.
No, like I was saying earlier, I think a lot of this feels like here's a character who's a actor we can find that will fit that. Mm-hmm. Like the only people I could think who might qualify might be him and Dan Stevens. They're probably the most relatively high profile people, and in both cases, I feel like they were both cast to fit the character, not the other way around.
Yeah, I pretty much feel the same way. He fills that dad role perfectly, and as far as the character goes, I like that not only is he a single dad, but he's also the teacher, and based on his performance alone, I can tell that he's the cool teacher. He's the teacher you actually look forward to in class, because he's going to make things a lot of fun.
He sings. He plays the guitar.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a good part of the show, was not just the integration of, like, background music, but a lot of the characters are actually singers themselves. I think it was in episode 9 where there's, like, a really trippy dream sequence where Leo is singing about the universe, basically, and it's full on Yellow Submarine trippiness, but because Sterling is a really good singer, it all works out pretty well. So on the topic of Song's performance, we only get one episode really to understand her backstory, but does she fill that well? For
the character that we were presented with, I think so. Again, we didn't really get much of her. I do have some thoughts and theories on this whole situation, but
ooh, goody! Wait! Let me get my tinfoil hat right. Hold on a second. Put it on here. Okay, go for it.
Okay. Well, a question. I don't remember. Did they ever establish her previously before, like this one time where we actually met her?
They
like did we see a picture of her? I don't remember.
We did not.
Yeah.
There's been I'm trying to think.
Did they mention her name at least?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No. Although with the music theme, I think Song would have been a very fitting name anyway. So.
Yes, definitely. Although, and again, this is going into spoilers, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. It's later established that Kipo has some powers.
Well, yes, every young girl has a power deep inside.
Yeah. Which I figured was going to be a thing because, well, she's pink.
Now, hold on, Rob. We do not discriminate against pink-skinned people on this podcast. You can say whatever you want about green-skinned or purple-skinned people, but we have a strict rule from the ACLU not to make fun of pink-skinned people.
All right, well, Well, let's just roll with it for now because it's just part of my theory. Anyway, she didn't really look like any of the other humans, so it felt like something was up with her. And sure enough, she at one point grew some fur and had some like weird eyes that saw in the dark, and she's part mute apparently, or perhaps all mute. We're not entirely sure. So my theory is I don't think that she's Leo's daughter.
Really?
Yeah, because we didn't really establish her mom, and that whole dream sequence, that feels like maybe that was just her trying to rationalize a mom in her life.
They do because in the dream, it's kind of, they retcon what happened to her mom, because in reality, we're told that she died when Kipo was just young. I'm assuming it was from childbirth. But in this dream sequence, they say, no, she was actually kidnapped by giant bunnies. Shame of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which do exist in this world.
But they're so fluffy, I just want to pet them. So your theory is that Kipo is like not a mutant, but like a science experiment?
I think so. Because they did establish, again, getting ahead of ourselves, that Scarlet and Leo know each other. And he is a scientist.
I'm willing to accept that as a theory. It's not really, like, it's just as plausible that she was born human, but then she was, like, injected with mute DNA in order to, I suppose, help the humans battle against the beasts that are out there in the real world, and that she was, like, the first test subject. But whether or not she's actually a birth child of Leo or not, yeah, that has yet to be established.
Yeah, I just when I saw that scene, I was just kind of trying to add things up, I'm
going to go into, like, tons of, not forums, like Discord chats where people are, like, strings on a wall trying to figure out, like, okay, here's my theory.
Well, I think...
Like Charlie from Always Sunny.
Yeah, exactly.
Something I found interesting about that is because I looked up the webcomic, and I noticed most of the characters who show up in the webcomic who are also in the final show are noticeably redesigned. Like when Benson first shows up, I think Benson's the guy, right? Dave's the bug.
Yep, yeah. Benson's the guy.
Like when Benson shows up, he's like this older white dude, like not the like teen we see, except Kipo. Kipo looks exactly the same, and I found that interesting.
Yeah, the reason for that was the webcomic obviously was just one guy doing his own work.
Right.
But then when they picked it up for a series, and he was theorizing how to turn it into a TV show, around the same time, Radford had been acting as a kind of like a youth counselor to communities, like black communities in the Los Angeles area. Oh. And so he wanted to, and specifically he mentioned that he was told by one of the other adults he worked with that the African American kids aren't used to white people. And so he thought, that must be weird in reverse when African Americans are watching cartoons on television and there's no equal representation for themselves as there are for their white counterparts. So he made a very conscious decision to include a wider African American cast when he redesigned the characters for the show.
Interesting.
So that I gotta be honest, I thought Radford was black when I was watching the show.
I mean, I will be honest. As I watched this, I was wondering, it's like, what ethnicity is this guy?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, don't feel bad about it, but I felt bad about it. But in the end, it made for a good show. So I guess how we got here doesn't matter.
No.
So yeah, we went off on a long tangent there.
Oh yeah. Like, look, it wouldn't be an episode of Dub Talk if there wasn't an unmotivated tangent at some point. This is a strong tradition of the show.
I'll have to watch more or listen to more episodes rather.
I'll try to recommend an episode for a show that, like, we've done like classic episodes. Maybe there's a show on there that you've actually seen before. Actually, Amon just did an episode on Fooly Cooly, so that may pique your interest.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Hopefully that'll be coming out later this month.
Actually, we're making really good time. We're usually only like done with the first section by 1 hour into the recording, so we're doing awesome. We are bad podcasters.
Some people like to be short and sweet. We're not those people.
So in covering the the parent characters who we get to see, which is very sad because these are the only parents who we see at all in the show. All the other human characters are presumably orphans, which is a shame. In fact, let's talk about some of those orphans, shall we? Let's move into the main group of characters who we got to talk about. Helping our buddy Kipo on her journey is Benson. Benson is a young boy who has an affection for playing a Walkman and is really into music. Like, this guy really, like, he does action scenes to lo-fi hip-hop music. That is how badass he is.
I'm actually surprised that 200 years in the future, there are still cassette tapes hanging around.
Look,
apparently the cassette tape boom had a lot more legs in this universe.
Obviously.
I'm really going to theorize that they may be magnetic tapes, but cassettes and VHS tapes will outlive any other kind of media preservation out there. It will outlive the internet. It will outlive discs. It will outlive paper books. Cassette tapes will just live forever.
Look, you joke, but I have a degree in this kind of preservation, and you would be shocked at how much older media is way more physically long-lasting than anything we use right now. Like, it's surprising.
So should we go back to, like, the really old way? Like, should we be putting all of our movies, like, chiseled it into rock to keep it around longer?
I don't know how you'd watch it at that point, but sure.
We'll just move.
Haven't you seen the Flintstones? They made it work.
Brought to you in Dino Vision.
Speaking of animal sidekicks, Benson is aided by Dave. And you may be hearing that name and thinking, well, Dave just sounds like a normal guy. Dave is a bug. Dave is a living, sentient beetle-type creature who has this interesting quirk of going through a metamorphosis basically every day. He starts out as an infant, moves up to toddler, goes up to teenagerhood, and basically he gets older and older, shedding his shell each time until he gets to ancient age, dies, and reincarnates as a baby again. But you cannot have a show about horrible animals that try to kill and eat you without at least one cute mascot character, and that's who we're going to mention, Mondu. Mondu is, I'm just going to say what it is. He is a four-eyed, six-legged blue pig. He can't talk. He doesn't have, like, much inner monologue, but he is a cute pig, and he doesn't get eaten, so he's around for the whole show. That is Mondu. So, voicing these characters, Benson is voiced by Coy Stewart. Now, those of you who are more familiar with Nickelodeon of this age, and I am assuming all of you are, probably have seen this guy before because he is Kevin in the TV show Are We There Yet? He's also Flint in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but probably best and well known to the modern audience as Troy, the lead character in the show Bella and the Bulldogs. I have seen absolutely none of the shows I have just listed.
Me neither.
I think I might have still been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when he was on. That name sounds familiar.
Then you're going to be the expert for this section. Thank you, Amon.
Are you asking me to remember Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Whoa. That show is way too boring for me to remember.
Oh,
you saw it. That means you're the most qualified.
Yeah, I want you to rack your brain really hard, no matter how boring it was.
I got nothing.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Robitussin of Marvel shows. Okay, Dave is voiced by Dion Cole. Now, this is the one character, I think, in the entire cast who I could not find any voice roles for, but he's done a lot before. He's Charlie in the series Blackish. He's a frequent member was a frequent member on the Conan show as both a writer and an actor. And he's also done a whole lot of stand-up comedy before. So, I mean, if you just search around Netflix for Dion Cole, you'll probably see his work somewhere. Or you could just turn on your television and watch an Old Spice commercial because he is currently making bank in the recent version of the Old Spice commercials. No, not the look up here, now back to me guy. No, not Terry Crews, but the more recent version of the character. And finally, to round out the cast, we got a non-dialogue speaking small animal in a cartoon. Who could we possibly get to voice this character? Well, let's see here. Tiffany Grant's all the way in Texas, so that wouldn't work out. Mel Blanc's not available at all. Oh, here we go. Let's get Dee Bradley Baker on the job. Yes, this is the guy who has voiced such iconic roles as Appa and Momo in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Actually, Appa was another six-legged creature, now that I think about it. He's Perry the Platypus in Phineas and Ferb. And I'm going to ask, Amon, Rob, have either of you guys seen the new Green Eggs and Ham cartoon?
I have not.
I have not, but I've heard many good things about it.
You do have to check it out, because as a main plot point in there, Dee Bradley Baker plays a character called the Chickaraff.
I'm intrigued.
And just the name itself just kind of conjures images in your mind, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
So yeah, he's the guy you go to when you need animal noises, and he's been doing it fantastically for 20 plus years. So, Amon, these three characters, what you got to say?
They're good. I like it. I cannot recall if I saw the part of Agent Sealed that Corey Stewart was on, but I like him a lot here. He's really fun. He just sells Benson's youthful enthusiasm really well. Like, when they have the bit where you first introduce him where he just, steals their bike and is just joyriding it around while listening to music, it's like, yeah. This feels like an actual teenager who has become used to the apocalypse, and so things like stealing someone's bike and joyriding around while you blast your hip-hop tape collection is just a thing you do now.
Absolutely. I don't hold it against him. I do the same thing.
Well, I won't hold it against him, but I can't say Wolf won't hold it against him.
Well,
that's a woman who can hold a grudge. He's a lot of fun. I like his style is really good. And I think he plays the character really well. I liked his bit where he meets the cute boy in the bunker, and he's just very taken aback by it.
That feels like something that will hopefully get developed a little bit more in season 2, because that kind of came right at the 11th hour.
I feel like that's very much a setup for we're gonna put a pin in this. Now when season 2 comes along, we're gonna take the pin out and get back to it. So just keep that in mind. It's a cute boy.
I am happy that in this post-apocalyptic, we don't know if we're gonna live to tomorrow setting, that we can still find love.
Well, I know definitely when I was seeing people talk about this a lot of them were talking about how whoever's writing on this talking about kind of as a queer person, it's nice to see a gay character, or that's just kind of presented, and it's fine, and it isn't the defining characteristic. It's just there. Which I thought was a nice part of the character. This show is very thoughtful in a lot of ways, and I appreciate that.
I thought he did really good. I love the character. I love him and Dave as a duo. They are so much fun together. Because I think Benson's the kind of character you can like bounce off of. Because he works well with just about everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think he's another character who has a surprisingly upbeat attitude considering all the things that are going on.
Yeah, it is refreshing to have someone who doesn't let. Oh, by the way, civilization has crumbled. There's no running water. It's all good.
Hey, whatever. As long as I got my Walkman and my best friend, who is a bug who has a weird life cycle.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. While I think Dion Coles handles the characterization very well, this very gruffer personality. Dave wasn't exactly my favorite character, probably just because he didn't get to do too much. He has some crowning moments of awesome, but overall, I don't really know what else he gets to do in the show.
He's the one character here who feels distinctly like comic relief. In part because, he has the whole aging gag, which is part of it.
True.
But I think that speaks to your point. He has much less of an arc compared to the other characters.
Yeah. Right.
I guess it's a good thing to have one of the mutes on their side.
That is a good point. Yeah, because if it was all just humans against the mutes, then we might not have any affection for, or not affection, but we'd see it as them against the world. So that's a good point.
Yeah, it would make it all a lot more like kind of like black and white in a way I think the show isn't really aiming for.
Well, they do expand that with the different mutes they meet, because I'd say about half of the ones that they meet are hostile, and the other half are, not hostile, but like benevolent enough. Like the timber cats are tough, but they're not out to kill you, or like the fitness raccoons will kill you, but only with awesome jazzercising. I loved the raccoon so much.
That was a wonderful episode.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I'm just like, I do love it when, okay, there's this old movie, this old Scooby-Doo movie called The Alien Invasion that you've probably seen, where the aliens think all humans dress like people from the 70s because that's what they saw, and so that's how they disguise themselves. That's what the raccoons reminded me of, because they clearly got a hold of the music or some movies from the 80s. Their entire aesthetic is just the 80s, like it never died.
They found a VHS machine, a bunch of copies of like Sweating to the Oldies and the Jane Fonda workout tape, and that's their context for what culture is.
They discovered Olivia Newton-John, and they think was just the best thing ever.
God bless them for it. They got physical.
Hey, at least they're healthy.
They are. That it's not like it's a bad lifestyle. When in moderation. I do like that episode gave Benson a chance to he was looking for a place to belong, and being a DJ gave him a place to belong amongst the raccoons. That was nice.
Oh yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, I like Coy Stewart's performance of this too, because now it just kind of, maybe because that's what I've been watching recently, but it really did remind me of Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse, as this very upbeat but still very human character that you just want to go on adventures with. And the fact that he does start out as kind of a con man person, because he is trying to steal their bicycle, kind of adds to the characterization arc of it all, because he goes from I'm trying to steal from you to I will follow you through the giant corgis of death to help you out, which is a nice arc to have. And then Dee Bradley Baker. The one thing I was worried about is that they were just going to have him make some pig noises, and they're going to recycle those noises in every episode. But from every time that Mondu has any vocal affectation, it sounds like it was recorded for that specific scene. So they get dozens and dozens of variations of grunts and squeals throughout this show. And honestly, that's all he has to be. Dee Bradley Baker just has to be the pig man.
Yeah. It takes a lot of talent to put so much personality into an animal character.
It does.
And I think Dee Bradley Baker goes very underappreciated, because that is a really good talent to have. And I've always said, if you need animal noises and Frank Welker's not available, you call Dee Bradley Baker.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if there must be people out there who've heard a Dee Bradley Baker performance and think it's Frank Welker, which must be so frustrating.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, I don't know if Frank Welker's as active anymore, because he's been doing voice acting since the '60s, so he's got to be like semi-retired by now.
He's still doing Scooby-Doo and Fred.
Well, I mean, he's going to do that till the end of time. Like, they will bottle his voice and just use that for more iterations of Scooby-Doo.
They'll turn him into a Vocaloid.
Oh god! Oh god!
It's too good to let go. We have to preserve it.
Oh god! That's an awful, awful image, Rob. Why'd you put that in my head? This world is mine indeed.
Oh.
So you say that God, I can't listen to a Miku track ever again now. So yeah, I think when it comes to these characters, they fill out the supporting roles very well. I do kind of wish that maybe Benson or Dave had gotten a little more in terms of development, because we don't quite know where they come from. Like we get tragic backstories for Kipo and Wolf, but we don't quite get any for these two.
Yeah, I did think that was a little bit odd.
Yeah, this feels like one of these things where they probably wanted to keep the first season pretty like tight and compact. And then if it gets renewed, they'll then have room to breathe and be like, okay, we can explore more character stuff now, because we know this is going to continue for a while.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
No, as of recording, there's not been a confirmation of season 2. So if the day tomorrow, if season 2 gets announced, we apologize. We did not know that at this time. I mean, it's happened before. Like stuff like Amphibia got renewed for a second season before season 1 even premiered.
Oh yeah, that stuff like that happens all the time.
Yeah, I imagine that's a little more common for TV animation though, where they want like a lot of material to work with. Unless they do the the Nickelodeon thing where it's like, okay, we'll pick up your show, we'll put it at a terrible time slot, and if it doesn't get the views, then you're just out of here. That's happened to a few too many good shows, people.
Oh yes, I have an upcoming review on one of those shows.
I can't guess which one because I haven't been keeping up with Nickelodeon very often.
It's not a Nickelodeon show, actually.
Oh, that broadens the spectrum a little bit. But anyways, actually, it's interesting we talk about modern cartoons because for our final 2 characters, both of them happen to be in quite a few modern cartoons. So moving on to our lead characters, we have Kipo the Wise Wolf. I mean, Kipo and actually her last name's Oak. It's Kipo Oak, who is our pink-skinned, science-obsessed 13-year-old protagonist who is just washed up into the surface world, and yet is adapting to it very well. I'm very glad about that. But her first interaction with a human on the surface is Wolf. Wolf is a young, I'm going to say like 10-year-old girl who is not called Wolf for no reason. She is actually donning the pelt of one of the wolves, and that is her getup. And we find out in a flashback episode that she was actually taken in by a family of wolves, thought to believe that they were accepting her as a daughter. Turns out they were just training her to be good prey for their children. And now she's got trust issues. And she wields a giant scorpion stick, which is awesome. So, voicing the lead characters, Kipo is voiced by Karen Fukuhara, who you may have heard in stuff like, she's Alexis in Craig of the Creek. And if you've been keeping up with the new She-Ra cartoon, she is the character Glimmer. But I'm sure that all of you saw the Academy Award-winning movie Suicide Squad, where she voices the character of Katana. Doesn't voice character, is Katana in the movie. I'm sorry. That's a live-action movie.
I'm pretty sure she didn't have any speaking roles in that movie.
All right, so did not voice Katana.
I saw that movie on...
She just was Katana. She didn't speak.
I can't remember if that character had lines.
I'm going to be honest, like, most of that movie has just left my brain at this point.
It's...
All I remember about it is Will Smith and Terrible Joker, and that's it.
I mean, you're not wrong.
And
on the plus, we are getting a sequel.
Which will hopefully be a lot better.
James Gunn directing. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it'll be worse than the first one.
If it's worse, I will be legitimately surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only way to go from here is up, unless we stay exactly where we are.
And so Wolf is voiced by Sydney Michaela. She's also in Craig of the Creek. She's voice of Maya. She's also in We Bare Bears. She's the voice of Kit. And jumping networks, she's in The Loud House. She voices the character of Joy in that series. So this is these are the sisters of the show. They started out as just the odd couple, and they develop into a sister dynamic. So, Rob, do they sell sisterhood in the apocalypse for you?
As well as you can, I think. They very much are the odd couple. And I love Wolf a lot. I love her, just the character, like all around. And whenever you got like a character, like a really reserved kind of grumpy character with another character who's just positive and happy and wants to be friends, and you get a lot of fun interactions.
Would you classify her as the dreaded anime trope of a tsundere? Because that is a damning critique, if we can classify her as that.
Definitely not at first.
It's not like I want to go to the burrow with you or anything. Baka!
I feel like the difference is when I think of tsunderes, they're usually embarrassed because they don't want to talk about their romantic emotions. Meanwhile, I feel like Wolf is just worried that she will be horribly betrayed and rejected again. Which feels a little more substantial than your stereotypical tsundere like rationale.
Yes, you're right. Thank you for defending that critique. I know we don't use tropes as like the benchmark of critique or anything, but when you watch a lot of cartoons, it's hard not to see patterns.
Knowing your archetypes can be important. There's nothing wrong in that.
Right. And yeah, to your point, Rob, Wolf is definitely a dynamic that really does carry a lot of the conflict on the show in a good way. Like she's against finding the humans, or she's against trying to recruit the Timbercats, or like she's against a lot of their plans, but she still goes along with it, and she's a great ally because she is just a really good fighter.
Yeah, she's seen a lot, that's for sure.
That was a tragic episode. That was just sad to watch.
Oh God, that was It made you think about that wolf pelt she has on her back. I wonder which one of her family that is.
I don't want to think about it. Can we not think about it?
Don't be ridiculous. It is clearly the sister whose betrayal hurt the most. Who else would it be?
Probably.
I put the pelt on, but it hurts me more than it hurts you. No, actually, I'm pretty sure this hurts me more. That's awful.
One thing I'd like to know is where did they find her? Because when she was with the wolves, she was wearing like nice clothes.
She was wearing I thought it was a school uniform. Like it looked kind of like
yeah.
So I'm assuming that. Here's my theory. Get your tinfoil hats on. I'll put this one on here. I'm assuming that there was a human school or human civilization above ground, and that she was a part of that. And that's why she was dressed in a uniform, because they were still trying to have some semblance of society. And that's the group that we see Charlemagne controlling in when we first see him, or at least one of the groups that he kidnapped. And that's what she's running from when we first see her in that flashback episode. I mean, I can't imagine. I don't know. We don't know anything about her birth parents came from. We don't even know her proper name.
Nope.
Season 2.
Could be.
Hopefully.
I mean, it's going to be hard to change that. Once you call her Wolf throughout the whole show, you can't change the name. You just can't.
Yeah, and she didn't try to correct them ever.
No, she was.
No,
I think
she just went with it.
She's just Wolf.
Cognitive dissonance. Yeah, that's all she has.
Although I would find it hilarious if it turns out her name actually is Jolene. I would find that very entertaining.
That would be a twist. I'm just gonna pick a random name, Jolene, and she's like, "Bitch, how did you know that?"
Clearly, her parents are big country music fans.
Yeah, so I think Sydney did a really good job on playing up the raspier side. She's a raspier voice than Kipo. She's got more of a vernacular speech pattern. But she never comes off as hateable. There have been characters who were supposed to be tough and likable and just couldn't play up the likable part of it. Probably because she doesn't do anything wrong in the show. Except for one thing. She does She does withhold a map leading to where Kippo's dad and the rest of her people are, just because she does not want to let her go. She does not want this adventure to end.
I hate that trope so much.
Luckily, it only lasted one episode.
Yeah, they resolved it very quickly.
Yeah. And I can't say it wasn't used well. Like, that trope is usually supposed to stretch the plot out a little bit more, but I feel like it really helped with showing how Wolf had changed over time. Because originally, if she'd found that map right away, she probably would have just given it to Kipo and said, "Fine, get out of here. You're bugging me. That's poison plant. Do you want to die?" But by that episode, no, she'd fully accepted Kipo and probably the rest of them as family that she didn't want to leave behind. So, yeah, good job on Sydney, because there were a lot of dynamics in there that were handled really well. And like I said, I think she was 15 or 16 when they recorded this. And now for the big one, Karen Fukuhara. Amon, what you think?
Well, start off, I'm glad you brought up that both of these actresses are in Craig of the Creek, which is another cartoon that has a cameo by a beloved rapper for who knows what reason. So
You're gonna have to tell me.
Do you remember? Do you remember? You've seen Craig of the Creek, right?
Only bits and pieces of it.
Oh, there's an episode where they run into a robot kid named Deltron, and that is a reference to the rap group Deltron 3030, which is Del the Funky Homo Sapien. He's the rapper on the Gorillaz' Clint Eastwood. If you know that song.
Yeah.
He's like the rapper in this. It's like this concept album about this sci-fi dystopia. It's great, by the way. You should all listen to it. And they basically got him to come on and do a Deltron song just for this. Look, I'm enjoying this trend of 90s rappers showing up in kids' cartoons and doing new material. It's like, this is wonderful.
It is. It's not like they're like, it's not like, okay, this is a popular person who the kids will recognize. This is very much, no, I don't think the kids will know who GZA is or who Deltron is.
This is all very much like the people who make Craig of the Creek like Deltron and like, can we get Del the Funky Homo Sapien on our show? And then decide, look, the worst he can do is say no, and then it works out. Everyone's happy.
I mean, that would explain why Weird Al gets asked to cameo in so many cartoons, because everyone wants him to be in their show.
He's so good.
It helps that he's good and that the original Weird Al generation is 100% like at that age too. So like, they're like, this is what I wanted to do when I was 12. I make a cartoon and Weird Al's in it.
Heck yeah!
I've achieved my dream. It was easier than I thought.
In fact, you know what am I doing recording this? If you guys will excuse me, I'm gonna go make a cartoon now.
But to talk about Sydney and Karen, I thought both of them did a really excellent job. Like, I agree with you a lot about Sydney. I thought she's good at being like, she's very tough. She's good at doing that, loner thing, but not to the point where it like completely covers up the fact that like Wolf's a 10-year-old girl. And she's clearly toughened herself up because that's what you need to do to survive upside in this day and age. But there's clearly she would like to have friends, people who are close to her. She would like to open up again. And I thought she did a good job of maintaining that initial characterization, but also letting the way it expanded and grew come through very well. Like the scene where she gives the map back and she starts crying because it's like, I didn't want you to leave because you might leave. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want this to stop. And it's like, that felt very genuine and heartfelt. And it was just, she gives a really good performance. I've been very impressed by this. Yes. And Karen's also really good. I know her mostly from watching She-Ra, where I think she's also very good as Glimmer. And this was fun because it's a very different character from what Glimmer is. Kipo's a lot more. She's very spunky and curious, and it's very lucky she doesn't get herself killed accidentally in the first 5 minutes. That's a very distinct possibility, frankly.
I should be hiding. I should be looking for people, but I gotta play a guitar solo. That's all I gotta do right now. It's like I'm outside the bunker. This is amazing. I can look at the stars now. She just. I do like her almost her first action is, the sun! It's gonna burn me alive!
The day star!
No, I really enjoy the enthusiasm she gives Kipo. And also the more sort of as the dramatic elements come in, as she realizes she has these powers that she doesn't know where they came from and she can't really explain, and just the anxiety she feels about that, and now that will affect her relationship with her friends. And what will that mean when we get back to the bunker? How's that going to shake out? Do my parents know about this? The point where she has a whole fantasy sequence where it's like, no, this is something I got from my mom, and my mom's going to help me see through this, and it's going to be normal.
Now, on that part there, I could be stretching what they were trying to go for, but it felt like that whole sequence of her dealing with her hair growing off her arm felt like a giant coming to terms with puberty metaphor.
I mean, I feel that is the very obvious and on-point read for that. I'm not going to disagree with that at all.
I mean, it's very easy to make that kind of connection.
Yeah, when she turns 13, yeah.
I mean, she didn't get her letter to Hogwarts, but she got something just as cool.
I mean, really, Hogwarts. It's a castle by a lake. This is much cooler. I would much rather be in the post-apocalypse, so there's a bunch of mutant animals running around who may or may not kill me. Like, that sounds way more fun in my book.
I won't deny it. That I would rather be in this world than the Harry Potter one.
I thought she was amazing, especially considering she was Katana and had no speaking roles again. I was shocked when I looked up her name and I saw that. I was like, wow, really? Like, all right, I'm glad she's talking now. Yeah, she was really good. It's always great to have like a positive character in a a world like this, and she has to be like the right level, because if she's too overbearing, then it's gonna feel, I guess, not really natural. But she was more restrained in that regard. In that excuse me. In that she was determined, and she was trying to stay positive, but at the same time, she was aware of the reality around her.
I was trying to think while watching the show, because the creator said that they wanted to make this post-apocalyptic world kind of like Wonderland. Like, they specifically wanted it to feel like Alice in Wonderland. It's just after society collapses. So I was trying to think, have I ever seen... Because I've seen quite a few Alice in Wonderland adjacent things before. Like, there's Spirited Away, there's the Portal anime that we've seen a lot of recently, and in all of those I don't think I've really seen a character quite like Kipo in any of them.
That's true.
And that's...
I've actually I've heard people compare this to the Wizard of Oz, actually.
Yeah, that was kind of the original Portal anime. Well, no, actually no, before that the original Portal anime was Connecticut, a Yankee and King Arthur,
Connecticut and King Arthur's
in
court.
King Arthur's court. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Remember, kids, Mark Twain invented isekai. You heard it here.
God, he did. I know we joke about it, but he really did. Dude, if Mark Twain was alive today, he would be on Mal forums, and he would be having YouTube videos about the newest simulcasts, and he would be on this podcast talking about Kipo. The dude would be a huge ass cartoon nerd. I guarantee you.
Just arguing in a very folksy accent.
Have you read Puddinhead Wilson? Because
I'll be honest, I've never been able to get over the name.
Well, it is goofy. I only bring it up because when I think Mark Twain, I think a shit poster. He was the original Twitter shit poster, because every one of the chapters in that book is just like a truthism wrapped up in a sarcasticness.
I mean, he is a man who wrote a sequel to maybe his most famous book and dedicated an entire section to making the lead character of said book look like just the biggest asshole in the world, so that checks out.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We were talking about cartoons. I'm sorry. But yeah, as you were saying, this is kind of like the Wizard of Oz in the being transported to another dimension and accruing weird friends along the way. And yeah, I think Karen has to balance that mix of, I'm overwhelmed by the surface world, but I'm also fascinated by it too, because she's just a naturally curious individual by the way that she was brought up. She was brought up to question how everything works, to be fascinated by the science of everything, and it's really fun watching that personality play out with the way that Karen balances her more normal sounding voice when she's just talking, and then she dips into a lower register when she's like, I'm getting really overexcited about this, or she's trying to imitate her dad, like, Kipo, you're supposed to be applying yourself, it builds character. I don't need more character, I just need to find you. I do love the little touches throughout the whole show. Like, the way to find her dad is the length of a parsec, which is, what was that? 3.26 light years is how long a parsec was. Just those little details there. I really like that. So I can't really think of any other way I would have had this character act or like a better performer for this. It was really good. And now I really do need to follow. I need to actually watch the She-Ra cartoon because I kind of want to hear a Shimmer now. Like Glimmer, not Shimmer. Shimmer, Glimmer, Shine. That's a different cartoon. So yes, we have gone through the entire cast list. Amon, did we forget to talk about any of their moods that are worth talking about? I'm asking legitimately because I think we covered them all.
The two that spring out are the leaders of the Cobras, the Snake Lady. And,
the umlaut snakes.
I also liked the lumberjack cats a lot because.
Yeah.
Look, if you've met me, that's like, yes, of course, Amon likes those. I like how they're all really stumpy, but they're still 8 feet tall. That's my that's my favorite design aspect in this show. They should be really adorable and rounded, and they are twice as tall as any other character. It's wonderful.
And they're led by Steve Bloom.
That's the best part.
Yes,
that was the first.
Steve Bloom playing an axe-wielding cat,
a lumberjack axe-wielding cat.
All that well-honed gravitas put into the fact that he can't catch a butterfly.
Yes.
Yeah, and on the topic of the snakes, I should notice that Gray Griffin, or as you know her, Gray Delisle, voiced the leader of that group, and we got Joan Jett in here as one of the other snakes in that sequence.
Yeah, that was shocking.
And again, I don't think it was like written for her exactly, but it fit.
I feel like they were probably just like, we're in LA. Are there any female are there any female rock musicians who'd be interested in this? And they just call around. And it's like Joan Jett says she'll do it, and it's like wonderful. We'll get Joan Jett.
Sure. Heck yeah, I want to do this.
Joan Jett appeals more to the metal kids.
That's true. You're right.
Yeah.
No, that was a very stellar improv rock show that they put on with Kipo.
That was good.
That's what I was saying. I love about the show is that even if you don't like the overall premise of the show about humans living in a world of supernatural creatures, the individual episodes just have a lot of fun everything to them. The one show it reminds me the most of is actually the miniseries Over the Garden Wall, which also had that 10 episode limit. And each individual episode is just its own standalone world, while also on the journey to try to get home. So
that's not a point of comparison I thought about, but you're not wrong.
Yeah, I could see it.
Also a show that heavily panders towards me by accident, so that's appropriate.
I'm not surprised that you you messaged me on what was it, Halloween time, saying, "Have you seen this show? Because I think it'd be right up your alley." And I'm like, "Heck yeah, I've seen this show."
You're the most animation aficionado person I know. It is very important to me that you've seen Over the Garden Wall. Possibly my favorite cartoon ever? ?
Really? All right. Well, join us again next year when we cover Over the Garden Wall with the same group.
Can I please talk about Elijah Wood playing an anxiety-filled teenager? That will make me so happy.
Save it for Halloween.
Not a bad idea. So yes, we've come to the end of our cast list here. So Rob, what we usually do is to wrap things up, we just let each individual person say their final thoughts to wrap up the podcast. So Rob, since you are our guest of honor, go ahead and give us your final thoughts on the show overall.
I enjoyed it. I think it has a great design, great visuals. The music, we didn't really talk about the music of the show. It's very hip-hop based.
Yes.
Which I thought was kind of an interesting choice, because usually with a post-apocalyptic world, you go with sort of melancholy stuff, or maybe synthwave. And as much as I love synthwave, it is a bit overused, especially nowadays, because they have it in Stranger Things and Infinity Train, and it's kind of everywhere. But it was a nice, refreshing change from that. Yeah, I enjoyed the show. It's enough to at least make me want to watch the second season to see where this whole thing goes, and to see if my crazy theories are correct. That's the most important part.
Yeah, we're gonna hold you to that. We'll check back in after season 2, and we'll compare notes, and this giant chalkboard I've got that's got millions and millions of theories on it. We'll find out which ones are right.
All right.
And then we'll rap about it.
Cool.
And so you see, Rob, I'm bringing you here to talk about the show that is very clear. And now we're going to talk about the theories that we made 1 year ago when season hit. I can't rap. I'm going to stop now. Sorry.
I don't know. This is the second time you've done one of these, and they both turned out pretty solid for something you made up off the top of your head. I think...
Don't let me do this. Don't let me do this, Amon. Don't let me embarrass myself.
Fine.
At least not when the microphones are rolling.
It's fair.
But it brings in the views.
It will be interesting to see how our normal listeners react to this, because again, this is outside our normal wheelhouse.
Indeed.
So Amon, so veering out of the realm of what we normally talk about, what'd you think of Kipo and the dub? The dub. I'm sorry, the voice acting.
This show is great. I'm a big fan of the Fallout games, in part because I find something fascinating about wandering around like civilization was here and now it's gone. Everything's just kind of burned out and overgrown. Like that's some of the most fun I have in those games, just kind of like wandering around new areas. And this is one of the first shows I think I've seen that it felt like it recaptured that feeling of just like there used to be stuff here and now there's just kind of remnants and things that have built over it. And life has gone on in some form or fashion, and I really enjoy that. I think the voice acting here is really top notch. I think this is a really just good, well-rounded show. It's really funny. It has like good, strong, dramatic moments that I think are sold really well. I really hope this does get renewed for a second season. I would love to see more of this. Again, it made John Hodgman a werewolf who thinks he's Carl Sagan. A thing that I will never stop talking about and cannot thank him enough. You know what? This is a show that got me to listen to Dan Stevens, a respectable, legitimate actor, make monkey yelling noises. And I can never thank it enough for just bestowing me with this gift.
There is some producer out in LA who had no idea that they were like your clone or they were on your wavelength, but they're just another version, a coked up version of you over on the other side of the country. I'm assuming they're coked up. I don't know what the drug of choice is.
I mean, they're Hollywood executives. Cocaine never goes out of style. Sadly.
See, I'm seeing snow outside my own window here in Michigan. They got a different kind of snow in California.
That's some true facts. But yeah, this show is wonderful. I had such a blast watching this. I highly recommend it. It is an excellent time.
And I am really glad that both of these fine gentlemen agreed to talk about this, because when I saw it, I didn't even plan to do an episode on this until I'd seen the whole thing. I didn't even know I was going to watch this until, again, it dropped a month ago. And I've just got suckered into the entire world of this, mostly because I don't know another show quite like this. I know shows that have elements like this, like we talked about Attack on Titan or Fallout games or anything like that, but this really feels like its own individual thing. It's fun, and it's really how it invests you into the characters with a plot, with some mystery in the plot that does reward your continuous watching. It's got great fight and action scenes. There's like a flight on dragonflies through crumbling building scene. There's fights in the sky. There's battles all over the place. There's hummingbirds who send explosions that are fighting against foul smell spewing motorcycle skunks. That where else are you going to get that? Nowhere but Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts. So, is the voice acting great? Yes, it is. It's a diverse cast and I don't just mean diverse in like the ethnical sense. I mean the sound of the different characters, which is something you need in an ensemble cast. No one sounds exactly the same as each other, and they all fill a necessary niche in expanding this massive world without having to just sit down and tell us what happened 200 years ago. Because as of this point, we don't know what happened 200 years ago that led the world to be like this. We may never find out, and honestly, it's not really important. It's just a fun watch, and I really hope it gets the second season. So, to wrap this all up, as we always do, if you would like to watch Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts, it is currently streaming on Netflix. I'm assuming that most of you, at least 99% of you, have a Netflix account. So if you're getting tired of rewatching Stranger Things or are hankering for something to watch while Green Eggs and Ham Season 2 is in production, turn on Kipo and the Age of Wildebeest. Not Wildebeest, Wonderbeasts. That's the one animal we didn't run across. There were no wildebeests in the show yet.
Yes.
I knew I was going to make that error at least once. So, that's where you can watch the show. Check it out if any of this interests you. And if you'd like to check us out here on Dub Talk, you are listening to us on our YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe. Help us expand the brand as we continue to watch different kinds of cartoons, because I finally got to do an episode on a real cartoon. It feels so good. Thank you, both of you, so much for helping us out here. Before I hand off to you guys, I do want to say we have some patrons. We have fine individuals who are part of our monthly Patreon group. First up, we have our $5 patrons. We have Nika Robbins, but with Yowie hands. We have Michelle Travis, and we have Crimson Echidna. Thank you all very much. And we also have our $10 patrons. We have Marissa Lenti. We have J2, also known as Jared. We have Jacob Wilson. We have Wee B. Wonderful group. Thank you, Alejandro Saab and company. And we have Carly Lesticow. Every one of you are amazing and awesome, and we could not do this podcast without you, so thank you all very much. Now, Rob, I want to hand the microphone to you because I want you to tell us not only where we can find your work, but also what you are currently doing, because you had a bit of a big announcement not too long ago, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I did. As I said earlier, my name on YouTube is Rob the Wonderful. I have a series called Cartoon Clipshow where I review cartoons, usually from the 80s or 90s, but I'll do just about anything. I do have a video that I'm working on soon, but I won't reveal what I am reviewing just yet. I would like to mention, though, that I am very close to 7,000 subscribers. Like, very close.
Nice.
And I every 1,000 subscribers, I like to do a little Q&A video, so hopefully we can cross that marker soon. I also recently announced that I'm interested in producing an animated pilot, and I'm kind of looking for artists, animators, anyone willing to maybe lend their voice or do some audio work for me. We're still kind of at the beginning of this, so I still need to find an artist and get some help with this, because I actually did write a pilot for about a year, maybe a year or two ago, and I'd like to get it produced, hopefully. So I'm looking for help with that.
Dude, wow, I'm really hoping that goes somewhere, because that is the dream. That everyone who's like in the cartoon or animation reviewing or podcasting industry are just people who want to make cartoons themselves. So you are actually doing it, man. Hope it goes far for you.
Yeah, so do I. It's been rather quiet lately, but we'll keep looking.
Well, I'm hoping this gets the word out there. So any of you guys listening who have experience in art and animation, who are looking to expand your repertoire a little bit, reach out to Rob, because he is working on something special. Speaking of special, Amon Duel, who are you?
My name's Amon. You can find me on Twitter at AmonDuelUS. Duel has 2 U's in it. I talk about movies and comic books, and I talk a lot about music. Noah, would you like a dusty old song for the episode?
I would be honored to hear your dusty old song.
Now, as we said before, the music in the show is excellent, and they do many wonderful songs in various styles. There's a great folk song about badass lumberjack cats. At one point, they do like a very on point, like straight up like country torch song ballad, which I was very impressed by. But because, as we mentioned earlier, I am enamored with the werewolves, I'm going to give you recommendations related to the werewolves. John Hodgman has done a little bit of singing, not a lot, but him and his buddy and fellow internet darling Jonathan Colton do a very nice version of the 20s pop song "Tonight You Belong to Me," which you can find on YouTube. I quite like it. And the Jizza, I do not have the know-how to properly recommend the Wu-Tang Clan experience because it is enormous. But the JZA has put out a solo album that I quite like called Liquid Swords, which I highly recommend.
Yes! Thank you. I'm just thinking of that meme. Mr. Obama, what's your favorite Wu-Tang Clan album? What does it have to do? Liquid Swords!
It's good. If you like a particular song to try out, I would recommend the opener, Liquid Swords, which gives you a good sense of JZA's style by himself. And if you want to hear him in more of a group context, there's a song on there called Fourth Chamber, which I've heard people argue that this might be the best Wu-Tang affiliate song, period. Also, It starts out with a clip from a movie called Shogun Assassin, which you might know better for the members of the Japanese film series that is an adaptation of a little movie called Lone Wolf and Cub. Hello?
I have not seen that. No, I have not seen that yet.
Oh, well, Shogun Assassin's fine, but Lone Wolf and Cub's well worth your time.
I've heard more good. I haven't heard much about the anime, but I've heard really good things about the manga.
Well, there's no anime, I don't think. There's a manga.
Oh,
there's a live.
It just is the manga.
Yeah, it's a manga and a live-action film series.
That's what it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very fitting for this show, which has a character named Wolf.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Hopefully things work out better.
Well,
She got a friend in the end.
I mean, most of her family's dead already, so it can't go that way. As far as we know, at least.
Come on, season 2. All right, and my name is Noah Clue. You can follow me on Twitter at Noah Clue. I have a YouTube channel which I'm working on writing stuff for, but as I am currently juggling 3 children, a wife, work, and sanity, that is just kind of available when as is. But hopefully I will have something up on that. But for them now, follow me on Twitter. I post about cartoons, and yeah, cartoons are awesome. We talked about a real cartoon, and that is the episode, ladies and gentlemen. Woohoo! I guess everyone say your goodbyes as we head into that great podcast in the sky.
Rock on Boston, rock on Cleveland.
They don't exist anymore. Not in this world.
Welp.
Thanks for having me on. I hope I did a good job because I am getting over being sick.
Everyone, aloha and otaku on, my friends.
Yeah.
Later.